O'clock hour, and I could be calling the regular session into order. Please take roll.
Supervisor Starkey?
Here.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Here.
Chair Wilson?
Here. I would please ask everyone to take a moment of reflection at this time. And I'll ask Supervisor Howard to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Rise. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any introductions of new employees?
Yes, Chair. The Director of Health and Human Services here. They have 2 new employees to introduce.
Good morning, Board. We have 2 new employees to introduce to you today, and I'm going to have Social Services Program Manager Katie Hampson come, and then Public Assistance Program Manager Jocelyn Woodrow is going to introduce an employee.
Good morning, Supervisors.
Good morning.
I'm here today with our new social services aide, Ariana Madrigal. She joins us from Southern California. She has experience in education, and we're really happy to have her. We hope to grow her into a social worker and be part of our team.
Great.
Welcome.
Ariana,
Thank you
welcome.
for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Desperately needed them.
Very much so. We're very happy to have her.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Jocelyn Woodrow, and I am Program Manager for Public Assistance, Employment and Training. And I have with me today Patricia Block, and she's the new Eligibility Specialist. And she's just going to tell you a little bit about her experience.
Hello.
How are you?
I am Patricia Block, as she said. I relocated from Sacramento about 2 years ago. Prior to coming from Sacramento, I worked around 10 years in the correctional setting, Folsom Women's Facility, delivering a gender-responsive, trauma-informed program. Prior to that, I've worked in several different rehabilitation forums, should I say, doing mostly family reunification. My education background is in social services, and I am also a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. I'm super happy to be here, and I love this weather.
Glad to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you. Nice to
Welcome.
meet you all.
That it? Great. Anything to report out, County Council, for the closed session?
No, Chair.
Chair requests any deletions, corrections, additions to the board members of the agenda at this time. In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come before the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Is there anything to be added at this time? Nope. Seeing none? We're going to hold the brief reports by the members of the County Council because they are going to be, they have warned me, they will be long. So I don't want to subjugate so many people that are here for other issues to the babblings of our unit here up. And wow. So we'll hold off on that till the end. We do have some timed items. Well, but we're going to attempt to go through the consent agenda. Comments and members of the public may be heard at this time as to regular matters on the consent agenda only. If you have anybody that is here at this time to speak to any of those matters, they can come forward.
Chair, when it's time, I'd like to pull item number 24.
We're pulling item 24 for discussion, vote.
Supervisor Starkey, do you want it for a separate vote, or?
I most likely am, no, it doesn't need to be. I have some questions.
Okay.
That was all.
Any public comment?
Yeah, actually, this is regard to item 24. I mean, you take it off the agenda on the previous meeting, and then you stick it on the consent agenda where there's very little place to ask him questions exactly as to why we need this particular individual as an employee of the county. And I think that this is a huge failure on the part of the Board of Supervisors to employ such tactics. It's a common tactics that the board seems to employ when they want to put something that's controversial out of the sight of the public and out of the sight of any kind of meaningful discussion. I applaud Supervisor Starkey for calling attention to that particular item because it needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for consideration of motion.
Motion to approve.
I thought since Supervisor Starkey didn't believe she needed a separate vote, that we would hear hers first and do the
You want to do that?
consent agenda
Okay.
as a-
We
as
can
a
bring
whole
forward,
group.
Is that okay?
yeah.
Okay.
Your questions on 24?
Yeah, this really should not have been on the consent calendar, in my opinion, either. The reason is that we are creating a whole new department, a whole new division. And while it is a bit of just a shift, because instead of our HR department being under the administration, it's actually going to be its own standalone department. And with that, there are going to be a lot of changes. And I really want to make sure as the public that we're aware of that. Some of the questions that I have, and it's going to probably be for our CAO, Neil Lopez, is I really am kind of curious what the next steps will be in the timeline for this. By hiring an HR director, department head first, and then building the department out after that, I'm just kind of curious, are we going to be building that plane mid-flight, or how is this going to roll out?
The structure is not going to change significantly. What will happen is just a director will be replacing our recently retired HR manager. So the structure actually is already in place. But what we're doing is providing and developing a new department head with the significance of the changes and the laws over HR and risk management, and the board realizing and understanding that that's some of our biggest liability issues is with our employees and through risk management. We've outgrown the HR manager structure. This county's had an HR manager structure, and we're one of the only in the county or in the state of California that does not have an HR director. And so we're just changing with the times and developing that position. So the overall structure, the only change is the director.
But
At this time, if the director decides they want to change things further down the road, they will be a department head and be able to bring that forward.
Oh, okay. So we're not creating a whole new standalone department. This is just going to be an HR director that you're still going to be overseeing them? Or
No.
will the Board of Supervisors?
Yes, the board will, it'll be appointed department head. The board will oversee a new department head, but the actual structure of the employees underneath that department head will not change. It basically is currently under me as the director. There's an HR manager that manages that entire department, both risk management and HR. This will split me away from being the HR director as well as the CAO and create a director position, so a separate department under the board.
Okay. So our existing departments currently, the chain of command would be they go through HR, they go through the manager. If they're not satisfied, then they come to you. Will the chain of command now be that the Board of Supervisors is the next step?
Yes. Yes, then it'll now be the manager level. We'll retain our risk management manager, but the HR manager will be replaced by the HR director. And the HR director is actually a risk management HR director, so it's both departments, both divisions. And so it'll be from the management, the chain of command will be to the director and then to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. And then as Mr. Straight pointed out that it was on the calendar before, at that time there was an A3 and now it's an A6. And I'm fine with that one. My question is, when we do the overall comp analysis for all the departments, and that comes back, because it was a very informal study on how we came up with that level of salary, is that something that could be considered, or is there a limitation since we already addressed it today? And, you know, there's no limitations that we could remodify that later should the comp analysis come back that is too low?
You could absolutely modify that. That's at the board's discretion, and it will help to have that management tool actually guiding decisions like that. We looked at 7 different counties, and that's kind of where the position fell. We based it on other positions like the CAO, like the CD director, like a couple of the elected officials that are kind of in that same range, and so we placed it accordingly.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and you put a lot of work into this. And then my only comments that I'd like to just make sure are made is that I do believe this is long overdue. I do believe that we need a standalone department, because I think they need that independence, that autonomy to be able to do the things that they're doing. I really am hoping that this new department that we are creating will really expand the services to the employees, that we will be able to, work harder to get these people hired quicker. So not that it wasn't fine under the current system. This is not disparaging to you at all, Mr. Lopez, but I am hoping that we can take this and really run with it and really expand and make this a very successful endeavor. Those were all my comments, Chair.
I know this is something that was on our list in our strategic plan for this year. It was something that we identified as a critical need, basically because we have been struggling in that department, both with retention but also with direction, as it is one of the largest needs that our department, that our county currently has, which is getting people hired and staffed. We've identified several critical areas, especially with the sheriff's office, which is very particular when it comes to personnel issues and personnel management, and having the expertise there. But you cannot, and it's very difficult to do that when you are not the director. And so having a director overseeing this operation, taking it off of your plate because you already have too much, especially when you're considering the amount of personnel that we do have here under county authorization. We're also looking at having HR personnel directly handling both the sheriff's office and DHSS as we look down the road at developing HR and threshing this out because of our need for both hiring and retention. So with that being said, it is something that we've identified as a need critical to our county to help address these issues, and it was identified in our strategic plan. So
With that, Mr. Chairman, I will move we approve the entire consent calendar.
Supervisor Howard already made the motion, or you rescinding your
But I
motion?
thought it was, okay,
Or,
yeah, either way. Or I will second then.
okay, thank you.
we have a first and a second on the consent agenda. Any? Okay. Take a vote, please.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes.
Chair, can I,
We have, yes.
I was just going to make a comment. Perfect timing, actually, on that, if you don't mind. Something that was on the consent agenda.
Go ahead.
Okay. Item number 6 was the approve and accept the independent auditor, which I see the auditor just walked in. And, we kind of just glaze over that. And I just wanted to kind of bring it up and give some acknowledgement to the staff and that are doing this. They're responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars. And I just want to point out that after that audit was performed by an outside service, there was 0 findings. And so I just want to give a little extra kudos to the auditor and his staff. And so I just want to point that out.
Thank you.
Yep, Clinton Shad, Donut County Auditor Controller. I'm assuming I missed the consent agenda. I apologize. I got hung up with staff. But thank you, Supervisor Borges. Yeah, we did have our annual fiscal audit. We have one every year, both federally and then our general audit. This year we had 0 findings. And I can tell you that's 100% my staff. They work diligently. They put in extra hours. We're like a lot of departments. We're a little short-handed at the moment, but they put the time and effort in, and I couldn't be anywhere near I'm at right now without them. So I appreciate the kind words, but I do want to let everybody know that my staff are the ones that are they're amazing, and I try to keep them happy at all times. And what they do is a miracle. Having limited resources currently, trying to hire some people, but able to go through the audit and pass without any findings. Last year we did have the one program finding, which has been cleaned up and cleared up. So we're moving forward with a lot of positive feedback from the audit. And again, thank you very much. And like I said, my staff are all awesome, and they're the ones that deserve the credit. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point that out.
Under the consent agenda, we had a couple of proclamations, and I'll turn it over to Supervisor Starkey.
So I see a lot of people in the audience wearing green and looking like you want to be here to support the mental health awareness proclamation. So if you want to stand up here, I can read that out to you. We appreciate you. They organized a walk prior to coming here today, and so this shows a lot of support for this particular proclamation. So I'll go ahead and start the proclamation of Mental Health Awareness Month for May 2024. Whereas over 1 million people in California alone report having serious mental illness, and over 5 million people in California report having a mental health condition. And whereas at least 8.4 million in the United States report taking care of a loved one with a mental illness or emotional health issues, resulting in an average of 32 hours a week for caregivers, most cases being family members. Whereas in fiscal year 22-23, the Del Norte County alone served a total of 1,395 unduplicated clients through its behavioral health services, with 322 of those being children, noting that the 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by the age of 14, and 75% by the age of 24, according to the National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI. Whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death between people ages 10 to 34 in the United States, and 1 in 6 youth ages 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. Del Norte County was reported in 2019 to 2021 to be the 7th highest in the state for its suicide rate. Whereas the average delay between onset of mental illness symptoms and treatment is 11 years, whereas 3.7% of U.S. adults experience a co-occurring substance use disorder, and in California alone, over 1 million people each year access services through public mental health systems. Whereas mental health conditions are the most common complication of pregnancies and childbirth, affecting 1 in 5 women, and for women living in poverty, as many as half experience some form of maternal mental health disorder. And maternal suicide and overdose combined are the leading cause of death for women in the first year following pregnancy. That statistic breaks my heart. Whereas Del Norte County observes Mental Health Month every May to raise awareness and understanding of mental health and to increase access to mental health services by offering hope to those in need. Whereas we commend the Department of Health and Human Services, Behavioral Health, and Public Health branches, and all of our community partners, or whether private, faith-based, or governmental, for their diligent work in improving the quality of life for those with the mental illness in our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte, that May 2024 is hereby proclaimed as Mental Health Awareness Month throughout the Del Norte County, and calls upon its citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental illness, including maternal mental illness, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental illness. Passed and adopted this 14th day of May, 2024. Thank you.
Yeah,
But I
we can
want a
just put it in
picture
the
with
middle.
all of you.
I know.
Kylie's going to get me a big
Squish it.
picture, because this is important and your work is so important.
All right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Did you get my double chin?
All righty.
Thank you for your work.
Thank
for
you.
doing the march. I appreciate all of it.
Thank you. I was just going to say a couple of things in regards to this, just more of a community awareness, and that is that our staff have put together some great stuff for May Mental Health Awareness Month, including some radio ads. So you'll hear from some of the people who are recipients of our service on those radio ads, and I commend them for being brave and sharing their stories, especially on the radio like that. They're really great. Hopefully everybody gets a chance to hear those on KCRE or KPOD. And then also, just to mention our outreach efforts. So we've really emphasized over the last couple of years improving our outreach efforts to the community. For instance, yesterday our staff held a booth at Stellant Health's Women's Day event. So if there's people in the community that would like to have mental health or behavioral health have a booth at your event, reach out to our office and we can coordinate that type of effort. And then the other thing is that Megan McClellan, our program manager, is a mental health first aid trainer. And so that is something that you'll see several times a year as offering those trainings to the community. We're going to work to coordinate our next one, probably sometime in the next 3 months, and we'll offer that out to community partners. But if somebody has a special interest or there's an emergent situation in your business or or just in your community, that you can reach out to our office and we can look at offering that additionally too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheyenne.
We're going to deal with the, you got a little bit of time. We will deal with our legislative and budget issues. Number 34 is approve and authorize letter of appreciation to be transmitted to Congressman Jared Huffman for his support in the county's fiscal year 24 request for community project funding has been provided for the Pike Field Improvement Project as requested by the Assistant CAO.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any public comment? Seeing none?
Supervisor Starkey?
I had a comment, but okay, yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. Number 35 is approve and authorize letter of support transmitted to Assemblywoman Cecilia Aguilera Curry for the response of the Assembly Constitution Amendment 1 as requested by Supervisor Howard.
If you need me to go through additional details, I will, but at this time, it's similar to what I spoke about at the last board meeting. Wanted to make sure that this was on our plate for recognition, and more importantly, advocacy on behalf by our lobbying groups, not only Yoder, but also CSAC and RCRC.
Any public comment on this issue?
Talking about number 35, correct?
Yes, 35.
Yeah, I always thought that this country was designed around the idea that the majority of citizens actually were the ones that were in charge, that when various tax issues, various measures come before the public, that we didn't end up with a 50-50 split where we have 50 opposed to 50 for a particular issue, and that was a lot of the reason why in particular tax measures were hamstrung, so to speak, by a 66% approval measure. And that kind of was the way things worked for several hundred years here in this country. Now, in the last 30 or 40 years, why we've decided that we want to have anarchy rule in this country, and we want to have a 50-50 type, 50 plus one and a 49 less one situation occur when we're talking about spending taxpayer money. This particular ACA1 is a way to hamstring the effectiveness of that proposition that has ruled this country for a couple of hundred years, and I feel that this board supporting that measure is a travesty. This country did not grow and form into the country that it's become by hamstringing the public with mounds and mounds of tax issues that pass by the slimmest of margins. And I feel that that to submit this letter in support of this particular issue is a slap in the face to the public by this board, and I fully do not agree with submitting this letter to the appropriate agency. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Chair, I have,
Yes.
if I could, thank you. I'm 2 for 2 agreeing with Sam Straight today, so this is an anomaly. I just want to give a summary to the public what this is that it is an Assembly constitutional amendment. In order to change the Constitution, it has to be placed on the ballot in order to change the Constitution. So this lowers the public approval of a bond or measure to 55%, similar to what the school bond level is, instead of the 66.34%, the 2/3, the majority, supermajority. So if approved by the legislature, which I think it has been, the ACA 1 is what this is called, would have to be approved by the voters in November. So I rarely do this. I really try to give what my professional opinion is. But here, my personal opinion on this is that if a government agency wants to raise taxes, then they should have enough justification that appeals to 2/3 of the public on the issue to be passed on the ballot. And a local example of that was Measure F. Measure F came before the voters a few years ago in order to increase the sales tax by 0.25%. And then Measure F was passed by 2/3 of the voters here who wanted to see the fairgrounds saved. So that was the purpose for that. I think this amendment makes it easier for local governments to increase various taxes, including sales and property taxes, and I think it wrongly chips away at critical taxpayer protections. Now, my professional opinion. My professional opinion is that this board does not take a stand on this one way or another, because the voters in this community and across the state of California will have an opportunity to weigh in on this at the polls in November of 2024. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I was just wanting to say that I was relatively surprised that RCRC supported this. I think it may be out of a spirit of defeat. Everybody knowing that we're in a housing crisis in California, but the crisis and the high cost of housing is driven by legislation that California has pushed. I mean, I've had a contractor the other day tell me that, our mandate to put your electric car service on every new house is an additional cost of close to $50,000. And then you've got solar panels on top of that, and then fire sprinklers in addition to that, and then having to abide by the California building code rather than the United States building code is another additional cost to housing. I think we need to get back to what's the fundamental reason of why our housing costs are so high here in California, rather than weaken our Constitution so passing a tax measure is easier to do for our legislature. So I personally can't support responding to this in favor, but I do appreciate Supervisor Starkey's sentiment that it's going to go to the voters anyway, so maybe we should just leave it in the voters' hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Entertain a motion. Seeing none, this issue dies. And that brings us to our 10:25 item, timed item. And this is where we allow members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed in the agenda, please wait until they hold your comments till the board takes out that matter, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Does anyone have any comments that they would like to say at this time that is not agendized? If so, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Brian Casper. I am the founder of the California Citizens Camp Cleanup Crew. It is a new nonprofit that I've developed in the area that is focused on cleaning up after abandoned homeless camps and illegal dump sites in the city and throughout Delaware County. I actually have some photos here I'd like to share with you, if that's all right.
You can give it over to the clerk.
These are simply before and after pictures of the different areas that we have cleaned up throughout the last 6 months. It is honestly amazing how much trash and clothes and food and everything that is simply spread throughout the entire city. And honestly, most of it has been hidden in wooded areas and throughout swamps and places that the public doesn't normally go. But we've been focused on getting those things cleaned up. That way, it is not quite so disgusting. I actually moved here from Texas back in November. And when I got here, it really didn't take very long for me to end up seeing how gross some of these areas are. So I decided to develop this nonprofit in order to take care of this. I simply wanted to introduce this nonprofit to you guys so that you guys knew who we were and what exactly we've been taking care of over this time. Anyway, thank you very much for meeting with me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you have your card available? Do you have information on how to contact you?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, as soon as you do, could you forward that to us? Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Vince Tomasich. I live on South Bank Road. I'd like to talk to you about the strategic plan. I thought that was wonderful. I really did. It's a good thing. You have to have some type of thing to place your government priorities, what you're going to do. And I read it in the triplicate last Wednesday. And I thought, that's cool. That's a very, very good thing. And I commend you for that. The one section that I did take a little bit of look at was, if I could read it to you for just a second. Supervisor Darren Short emphatically opposed any ordinance concerning short-term vacation rentals. Joey Borges countered, openly asked Short if restrictions on vacation rentals existed. Short said, other than septic requirements, there were no restrictions on short-term vacation rentals. And Joey Borges responded with, hey, I think it's a good thing to have discussion on it. Anyway, Supervisor Short made a motion. Let me read this. The motion by Short to remove vacation rentals from the strategic plan was seconded by Supervisor Dean Wilson. The vote to exclude vacation rental discussions from the strategic plan did not pass. Valerie Starkey voted no. Joey Borges voted no. We got two supervisors now, two that want to discuss it, two that don't. Gentlemen, ma'am, if we have two people that don't want to talk, that can't come to loggerheads, why don't you just take and do away with vacation rentals? New vacation rentals, and I don't know if you could do that. Existing vacation rentals would be grandfathered in. No new ones. And I don't know if you could do that. County council would probably know more than that than I would, but it wouldn't affect, you wouldn't have to deal with vacation rentals ever again because they're done, except for the existing ones. The county would still be receiving revenue from the existing ones, and when those sold, that's the end of that vacation rental. So anyway, it was just an idea I thought of, and I thought I would bring it to your attention. Valerie Starkey and Joey Borges have been the only supervisors that have been out to my house to talk to the folks on South Bank Road about the cons, some of the problems they're having. And there are problems with them. There truly are, folks. So if you're not going to be able to make any decisions, you don't want rules and regulations on them, why don't you just outlaw them? Just say no more. Hell, would be the way to clean it up. But existing people, they're grandfathered in. Anyway, thank you very much. And I think the strategic plan is a great thing. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Hello. First, I want to thank you all for letting us be here today. My name is Chelsea Sanyolu. I'm the event lead for Relay for Life of Crescent City, and on behalf of the Crescent City Relay for Life Committee, we would all like to cordially invite you to our event in July. It's July 20th and the 21st. The opening ceremony begins at 6 p.m., and it would be great to have a wonderful showing of support from for our local cancer survivors and all of those that will continue to fight for a cure. At Relay, for those of you that don't know, we walk so that those living with cancer and those remembering the ones they've lost don't have to walk alone. We fundraise for those working tirelessly to improve cancer outcomes so that they can continue to make the future bright. There are some ways that you all can get involved. Anybody. Like I mentioned, it would be a wonderful way to have you at it would be wonderful to have you at our event. You can also volunteer and gather some friends or family to create a team, or of course donate. We're always looking for in-kind sponsors and donations or raffle items. We appreciate you all. God bless. These are some invites for you. Some save the dates.
Okay. Everybody gets a balloon and a save the date card.
And there is a team captain meeting next week, May 21st. So if you're interested in becoming a team captain and getting a team together for Relay for Life to be on the track, we would love to have you there. And you can reach out to us on the Relay for Life page on Facebook.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think all of you know that I've just been out of the country for the last couple of months, and prior to being out of the country, it was of great concern to me that it seemed like Health and Human Services had grown to the point that our county residents were in large part members of that fraternity. I referred to them as creating dysfunctional adults in the community, and I was corrected by our esteemed president of the Employees Association, and I'm told we need to refer to them as vulnerable. In any event, I have been concerned about the rapid growth of government in the county as a whole over the last considerable time that I've been sitting in that chair, attending various meetings, and I thought while I was out of the country, I'd do a little checking to see what other countries did with regards to some of the services that we offer. And I must admit I was a bit stunned by the level, or the rather lack of government services offered in the country that I just spent the last month in. They don't have a Health and Human Services. They don't have an unemployment department. They have just very basic services, fire, police, infrastructure. They provide education and health. Granted, it's on a very modest level, but what they don't have is something that was rather interesting. They don't have any crime. They don't have any homelessness. They don't have drug problems. They don't have a great deal of theft. Mental health is not a particular issue on the island. I found that the islanders, for the most part, are generally fully employed and actually could use some imports to fill out. For instance, their police department has 16 spaces, of which only 10 are filled, but they utilize the police for customs and immigration rather than crime because, like I say, crime literally does not exist. There are no drug problems on the island. There are no homeless encampments. There are a lot of the kinds of social issues that we have in this county, in this community, in this country do not exist in that island. Now, granted, we're only talking about 1,500 people, but we're talking about a country nonetheless. And they successfully provide all the basic services, garbage, water, on the basis of they have no property tax. The income tax is 7.5% flat rate. Where they get their money from is a sales tax, which is 15.3%, and that seems to cover all of the services that are required by the islanders. And so I ask you, when you have all of these measures to increase government, which I've seen nothing but since I've been here today, that maybe you might want to pause and reflect before you pass.
Good morning. My name is Donna Westfall, and I live in the city and I own rentals in the county. I'm only here to make this public comment, then I have to leave. So let me start out by saying that I'm helping to repeal some of the taxes in our town. First, the Crescent Fire Protection District Benefit Assessment Tax that has been tacked onto the property tax. This is already slated to go on the November ballot, and I want to get back to that in a minute. Second, the county Measure R 1% sales tax that need over 800 signatures to be turned in by June 27th to go on the ballot. Third, the city Measure S 1% sales tax that need only 100 signatures to go on the ballot. I'm also collecting signatures to recall, in my opinion, the worst governor in my lifetime, Governor Newsom. Now, about citizen oversight committees. They don't work, and here's why. You have 5 like-minded people sitting on a board. There's no dissension. There's no investigation, let's face it. Fraud and corruption do exist in our government. And when you overtax people and they can't afford to live, then what do they resort to? They resort to theft. So our crime rates are increasing. Our housing, I do believe more people are moving out than moving in. There are about 40 foreclosures and a lot of empty and abandoned buildings. Now, I want to say something about the tri-agency. I thought that was a dead issue. We interviewed Councilman Ray Altman last month, who said it's dead. It's not dead. Some reason, I don't know. It's like beating a dead horse, but there's no reason for it. So, getting back to citizen oversight committees, just for the CFPD, Linda Sutter and Mario Westfall both applied to be on that board, and they were rejected, which is interesting since Mario Westfall retired from the Los Angeles Fire Department after 30, 40 years, and probably knows more than any of the firefighters, fire chief, or captains in this town. So that says something to me about why they don't want dissension, because this guy knows an awful lot and can make some good points. And lastly, will the government ever have enough money? In my opinion, no, never. And I don't think tax is the way to go. If you want a booming economy, you're going to have to be more inventive and have some visionaries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Robert. Just wanted to support the one commenter about the vacation rentals. You know, I was surprised by Darren as well, because we threw that strategic plan workshop and most of the people mentioned it, you know, and he seemed so shocked that it was on there. And it's the idea that there's like 10 for rent on Facebook. There's 200 that are, a lot of them are bare land on Realtor.com for sale, and there's 400 on Airbnb. And I just talked to the fellow out there. I said, would you be a proponent in the ordinance? It's the only way we're going to do anything is by being a voter initiative. And he said no. You know, people don't really put their, you know, but you guys should be a little bit more diligent on that kind of thing. There should be a limit to how much of our residential zones, as much as the bullshit you guys give about wanting low-income housing, you should try to protect our residential zones from tourists, maybe. I actually had some beef going on, and I stayed in an Airbnb for a little while, and they had a business license for apartment. And so in our zones, there's actually, you're supposed to get a special use permit for guest lodging, but nobody does it, you know, and so all you have is the tax permit. And some of you guys are invested, and the county thinks they're invested because they get occupancy tax, which would be better to realize that campgrounds and hotels that have been appropriately planned for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Seeing none? We'll take up number 36, which is approve and authorize a letter of opposition being transmitted to Senate Pro Tem Mike McGuire and Assemblyman Jim Wood in response to Initiative 1935 as requested by Supervisor Howard.
Chair Wilson?
Yes.
I'd just like to make note as well on item number 36. It is added in the packet, but there's also a resolution attached to the letter, just so everybody's aware.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we all could read. I don't think there's any further point in discussing this unless you guys want to have a discussion on it, but please let me know. I can move forward from there.
I only want to add, if I could, Chair,
Go ahead.
that in the resolution, in the item, it does talk about I'm sorry, I've got to find my notes now. We're jumping all around.
Yes.
Is that it talks about how it will be retroactive to certain measures that we've had passed. And I just want some I asked for clarification and got it, and I want to make sure that we include that it will not impact the 2020 passage of Measure R. It only is retroactive back to 2022. So I just wanted to make sure that that was in there in the resolution and in the letter. It does state that it would negatively impact that. It potentially could in the future, but for now it wouldn't. So with that, I would make a motion that we send a letter of opposition, but we allow for final edits to the recommendation letter and resolution after consultation with the CSAC.
Move to approve, or second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment?
I have the same objection to this letter that I had to the letter that was being offered in support of ACA1. I won't take up any more of your time. I also have the same opposition to number 37 and number 38. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any poll the vote?
Supervisor Short?
Yeah, Sam, just so you know, we are opposing this one. Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. And bringing up number 37, approve and authorize a letter of opposition transmitted to Assemblyman Steve Bennett in response to 2079 as requested by Supervisor Howard.
Yeah, this, just real briefly, and you guys could again read this. This doesn't really impact Del Norte County, but because of the way CSAC and RCRC are trying to rally the troops around impacts to other counties that are impacted by SGMA, I thought it'd be important for us to also support those counties that are now 5 years into planning around SGMA and groundwater extraction and are unfortunately becoming pulled into state oversight, which none of us want. We want local control, and this pulls really those SGMA counties that are in a medium and high priority into state control, and I think we need to do everything we can to keep local control. So that's why this is on the agenda today.
Thank you, Supervisor Howard. I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, poll the vote.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. Number 38 is approve and authorize a letter of opposition and transmitted to Assemblyman Joaquin Albula in response to AB 2528 as requested by Supervisor Howard.
Again, I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at this. Randy could also speak to it if you want. But we do have an opportunity here again to support, I think, some important legislation oppose some important legislation that, again, takes away some of those local control issues.
We'll move to approve.
Second. Any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, poll the vote.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey? Yes. Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. 39, approve attachment A as reclassification of cook 2 and 3 and supervising cook positions as correctional cook 1 and 2 and supervising correctional cook at the jail as requested by the sheriff coroner. And approve the attached classification descriptions to newly created correctional cook 1 and 2 and supervising correctional cook. Authorize the human resources to update jail division staffing chart and applicable salary schedule and all the necessary administrative steps to reflect the board's approval as recommended by the county administrative officer.
Move to approve as stated by the chair.
Second that.
Any public comment?
Good morning. Norma Williams, Chapter President, Delaware County Employees Association, SEIU 2021. We definitely hope that you will approve this particular item, and basically at the behest of the Cook jail staff who did approach the union. We did work with them. We conducted a actual wage study on this one particular classification with the 10 comparable counties and threw in Humboldt County. And after some time and consideration, we did meet with the sheriff as well as with your county team. And after some discussion, the county team then gave their proposal, which we did accept. Again, taking a look overall at the study, it does goes to show that even with this one particular classification, even though there are only a 3-member staff, they were still woefully underpaid in comparison to the other counties that we did do research on. And again, this is just one classification out of many who we represent. So we do hope that you will take this up and do approve it, because the alternative will only add to the problem of retention here in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Oh, sorry.
Just an observation. Once again, referring to my previous experiences in the island nation of Niue, the government employees in Niue start at $11 New Zealand per hour, which is approximately $7 US. They don't have any problems with retention or trying to employ people in that island, and I respectfully submit that wages are a real easy issue to point to as to why you can't keep people. But as I've pointed out on a number of occasions, the climate which you have in this county in terms of where people have to work might just have a little bit to do with what your problems are. Thank you.
Thank you. Entertain a motion?
I just had a question. Everything in their job classification, and Neil, I guess I'm kind of pointing this question to you. Every one of their responsibilities really looked like they should be included in our safety group. And I know changing them from one union group to another is laborious, but it really seems like they should be under SEA. Is there any movement from them or from whoever would be responsible at the county to, in my mind, correct that so they would be put in their proper union group?
That has not been requested by the cook's classification or by the union or SEA, so it would have to come forward from one of the represented groups.
It has to come from
and
them.
it has not
Okay.
been.
All right.
There's also an employee-employer resolution, which also outlines a process outside of that, but it's a whole other process.
Thank you.
We had a motion and a second on this already, so please poll the vote.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes, and this is long overdue. Appreciate the work. Thank you. That's the end of that one. We're going to adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and bring it forward as the Board of Equalization, and we'll be taking up item number 29. This is to implement the Superior Court's order in the case of Jennifer Perry, Delaware County Assessor versus the Board of Supervisors, Delaware County, in its capacity as Delaware County Assessment Appeals Board. Vacate its decision to grant assessment appeal application filed by Chappie and Judith Dobbs as to APN 101-210-012 on the October 25th, 2022 Board of Equalization appeal hearing, and change this record to show that the application is denied as ordered by Delaware County Superior Court.
Much as I disagree with the sentiment, I will abide by the court order and make the motion that we make that change.
And I agree with Darren's sentiment on this. I don't see the point of having a Board of Equalization if we can't equalize.
Need a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. Number 30, approve an assessment appeal withdrawal and the assessment appeal application of 2022-008 for Garfield Beach, CBS LLC, for the 2023 calendar year. A motion to approve. Second. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I have a motion to second.
Can I
Please.
clarify, was Supervisor Howard the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please poll.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. And we will adjourn as the Board of Equalization, reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. Number 31, pursuant to Section 4.7 Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Del Norte and Delaware County Sheriff's Employees Association, approve the hiring of a step higher than Step A, but not higher than Step C for positions covered by the Delaware County CAA MOU, and has been identified as a difficult to fill sheriff coroner for a period of time for the 6 months effective immediately to help address the current staffing crisis as requested by the sheriff coroner and recommended by the county administrative officer.
Check, I have a question if I could before.
Go ahead.
I just didn't want anybody to make a motion before I, is that okay with you, Chair? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
please, go ahead.
So just a clarifying question is that the board report prepared by CAO Lopez indicates that it has been identified as difficult to fill by the sheriff coroner for a period of time of 6 months, and that change is effective immediately. However, in the attached 4.7 of the MOU, it doesn't have the language of 6 months. I just wanted to make sure that it says that where it is difficult to hire qualified personnel or where a person is unusually high qualifications is hired. Does that make a difference? If it's in the MOU and the board report, does the 6 months make a difference?
No, this is just letting the board set a parameter to this so we can bring it back in 6 months to see how this is going. This is an attempt to address some of the staffing crisis at the sheriff's office. And so this is something just putting a timeline on that so we can bring it back to you.
Okay, but so between now and that 6 months when you bring it back, that the sheriff can hire someone at the Step C?
Correct.
Okay, and now does this MOU apply to all of SEC? Because SEA, has 4 different salary schedule categories. They've got post-communication, miscellaneous, and communications. So does this MOU apply to all of that bargaining unit?
Yes.
Okay, so if the sheriff wanted to hire a dispatcher, they could bring them in at a Step C?
That's correct.
If they had the experience? Yes. And can you tell me why we're putting a time limit of 6 months on there when other bargaining units throughout the county have that just automatically in their MOU? Why would we want to do that, a 6-month trial period for this?
Just to see what the results of this are. It's just something that's been, this is a kind of a out-of-the-box thinking by the sheriff and myself to bring something forward to address what they're going through from recruitment and retention standpoint, and so we kind of want to see how it works.
Okay.
As you know, the current MOUs also have this language in it, but each individual request is brought back to the board, brought back to the board, back to the board, and so it's every 2 weeks that we have to wait to bring these requests back, and sometimes that holds up hiring of somebody who is eligible and ready to work. And considering the crisis that we have at the the sheriff's office from staffing, we want to avoid that waiting period each time. And having the board
Absolutely. Okay.
authorize the appointed authority to do this.
Oh, okay, I appreciate it. I misunderstood. So this will just be an automatic step C, doesn't have to come back for the board for approval. The sheriff can make that determination, and with, unlike the other bargaining units, they have to come to the board.
Well, correct, and the board could actually do this for other bargaining units as well. It's something the sheriff brought forward. It was an idea he had, and I think it's a great idea, and it's something worth trying out, which is why I agreed to it and recommended it today.
Well, I really do agree with it too,
Yeah.
because a step A for a brand-new sheriff is $26.61 an hour. A step C will get them up to $29.33 an hour. That's more in line with what I believe we should be paying our entry-level deputies. So I am appreciative of the work that you've done, the out-of-box thinking that you've done, and I am grateful because you're solving a problem. You're helping solve a problem, hopefully. Let's fingers crossed. And so I am grateful for the work that you did.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion now to approve?
Yeah, you can go ahead and make that message. I'm sorry, I have a lot to say.
That's all good.
I'll make a second. Have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, pull the vote.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. And that brings us up to our 11 o'clock timed item. This is to approve and adopt a proclamation proclaiming the week of May 29th to the 25th, 2024 as Emergency Services Medical Week, and to receive an emergency medical services update from Delaware Ambulance.
Move to approve and adopt that proclamation.
I will second. Oh,
Sorry. No, go ahead.
And third.
motion and a second. Any comment? Seeing none, bring it, pull the vote.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. And I have that proclamation in front of me, and I'll read it. Ron, if you want to come up, anybody else that is here for this presentation, please come up. This is in honor of EMS Week proclamation, designating the week of the 19th to the 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week. And whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and the members of the Emergency Medical Services team are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And consistent access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate to those who experience sudden illness and injury. And emergency medical services have grown to fill the gap to provide important out-of-hospital care, including ambulance service. And the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and others out-of-hospital medical care providers. And the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical services providers has designated Emergency Medical Services Week. It is now therefore to be resolved, the Delaware County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaim the week of May 29th to the 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week, marking the 50th year anniversaries of EMS Week programs and staying with an EMS strong theme. The Delaware County Board of Supervisors encourages the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Passed and adopted this 14th day of May, 2024. Thank you so much. I'll come down.
Some of our staff and one of our newest paramedics come to join us today. And Lyle is one of our training officers, so he's helping with all that stuff you just talked about.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming.
I want to thank you for the proclamation, and I also wanted to thank you for letting me give an update on EMS in Delaware County and what we've been up to over the last year. I met with I met with all of you, and I just want to let you know that we heard what you had to say, and we're responding to your inputs every day to try to improve our service. This year marks 39 years of my ownership of Del Norte Ambulance, and I'm proud to say every year we get a little bit better, and 2023 didn't disappoint. Our staffing, we continued to meet the requirements of our contract. We had 3 ambulances on duty every day, or equivalent of 26,280 unit hours. And to remind you, a unit hour is 1 unit for fully equipped with 2 people on a call or waiting for a call for 1 hour. In fact, in 2023, we produced 34,885 unit hours. Our equipment and supply program, through our relationship with Metro West, has continued to grow. We continue to have an accelerated program for upgrade improvements, and program remains on track for that. Training, in addition to our robust training program and our CQI program, which ensures that all our staff are meeting the latest standards and getting the best training in EMS sciences as they roll out. Excuse me. It also ensures that we're meeting all the requirements of North Coast EMS and following their standards the best. We also have an in-house training program that trains our folks, but we also have a robust program that helps is offered to our first responders in the community for their continued education and growth and improvement, as well as doing countless CPR and first aid classes for the public every year as part of our mission. So EMS is not just ambulances responding to 911 calls. On the surface, every day we work with police and fire to respond to those calls, but we also have a lot of folks behind the scenes that help us near and far to make us a better place and make Del Norte County a better place to live and be healthy in. Our relationship with Metro West has furnished us a small community with big dividends by putting us at the table with major EMS players, like Mr. Sean Baird in the audience here. He is the past president of the American Ambulance Association and is privy to the highest level EMS discussions ongoing across the nation, and provides us with valuable resource and insight, along with good direction on where we should be headed. We work, Del Norte Ambulance and Behavioral Health Services have a very long and healthy working relationship. Given the remoteness of our area, we have worked hard to provide a service that helps people with behavioral health needs in a safe and humane way. With the passing of Prop 1, I don't know what that's going to mean for our community, but you can be assured that Behavioral Health and Del Norte Ambulance will continue to work and do what's best for the people in need of those services. Both Sutter Coast Hospital and Del Norte Ambulance have a strong commitment to the community and the EMS system. Both services actively engage in problem solving and training to meet the needs of our community. One of the new programs that we're working on is a dashboard that will identify targets and trends of people that are being underserved in our community, and try to put resources together that will help them in a timely manner. Hopefully we'll have more to report on that next year for you. And then finally is our Del Norte Dispatch. These are a group of hardworking people that have a tough job answering those calls for 911, but they're eager to respond in a moment's notice and get you the resources you need right away. We were able to leverage some of our support with Metro to get Bay City's ambulance dispatch to be able to provide us EMD, or emergency medical dispatching, which allows the dispatchers Del Norte Dispatch to get back to answering those 911 calls and dispatching the resources needed, and not being distracted by other topics there. And with that, I have Sean and Michael Lane from Sutter Coast Hospital.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisors. I appreciate you letting me speak here for a second. Good morning. My name is Mike Lane. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Sutter Coast Hospital. I started February the 5th. Today is my 99th day, and I'm extremely excited to be a part of this community. I'm here this morning to applaud the work of Ron Sanders, Charles Tweed, and the Del Norte Ambulance staff and crew. Although I have not been in Crescent City very long, I do come with 42 years of experience in healthcare and management, 21 years in Navy medicine, and several years as an emergency medical technician running my own ambulance crew at Camp Pendleton, California. From my limited assessment at Del Norte Ambulance, they're top-notch. They care. However, in order to provide you with a little bit more of a tenured and credible impression, I solicited our emergency room physicians, our ED director, and some of the staff in the ED to give me their impression. This is some statements from some of our staff here. The ED physician, I think Del Norte Ambulance paramedic Erica Bachman, although I've never met her, I understand that she's fantastic, has made tremendous strides to improve the knowledge base of the medics. Overall, I feel that they are doing great, moving in the right direction, and have made efforts to improve the knowledge base and treatment algorithms. Another emergency room physician, we greatly appreciate and understand the complexities that exist in the pre-hospital medicine compared to the more controlled environment inside the hospital. Their leadership, in particular Erica, is a great resource to them to continue to build on their program. For my ED director, she says, Del Norte Ambulance are the first responders to our community to help the patients get to Sutter Coast to get the care they need. They provide excellent pre-hospital care to our community, whether it's to respond to a trauma, a heart attack, a stroke, or to transport a psychiatric patient out of the community. Sutter Coast is grateful to partner with them. And a staff nurse said Del Norte Ambulance does a great job, and they have caring staff. That concludes my statements. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Sean Baird. I'm the CEO of Metro West Ambulance, family of companies, and we've been working with Ron for about 5 years. And as he mentioned, I'm also the immediate past president of the American Ambulance Association. And in both of those roles, I get to see a lot of communities and how service is delivered all over the country as well as locally. And Ron and his crew, as you heard from Mike, in particular Erica, as training officer, are doing a tremendous job for the community. And some of the investments that Ron's been making in the last couple of years with upgrading technology and the accessing electronic charting, which sounds mundane, but that's where you get data to make good decisions and have training officers really drive care where it needs to go. And I'm very proud to be affiliated with Del Norte Ambulance, and I think that they do a great job, so really appreciate that you all recognize EMS Week with your proclamation. Thank you.
Hello, Cheyenne Hogan, Deputy Director for Behavioral Health. I just wanted to take a minute and thank Del Norte Ambulance for their support to behavioral health over the years. I've worked with a number of their staff through my 18 years in working in the branch. Most notably, it started kind of those conversations with John Pritchett and his terrible, terrible dad jokes. But I always appreciated working with him. And then most recently, a lot with Charles Tweed and really rolling out and designing our mobile crisis unit that will come later this year. They've been really instrumental in kind of the planning and game planning for that, and especially some of the new things that we kind of need to work on to really get that rolled out. So Charles has been very helpful into that process. I also wanted to just note last year during the fire, our office played a vital role into the Emergency Operations Center, where we came into contact with people who maybe needed just checked on. And Del Norte Ambulance was really great in coordinating with our staff and making those contacts to people within our community. So I really appreciate that work. I appreciate that, in a small town, we make connections and we can be quickly on the phone with each other. So even when problems arise, that I appreciate the aspect that we can call staff at Del Norte Ambulance and talk through those and come up with creative, great solutions that work for us and work for the community. And then on a personal note, I want to thank their office. Last year in October, my husband was in a head-on car accident on 101, and Del Norte Ambulance responded to that call, and the staff were just extremely professional and kind and helpful, and thankfully my husband wasn't very injured, but on a personal note, thank you for that service. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I can't confirm or deny anything about that. Yeah, those folks were just some of the folks that we deal with all the time, and just by hearing them, you can hear they're much better at speaking up here than I am. But I do want to thank you all and want to thank the speakers, our staff that come up and work every day on the hard hours and all that. And I know Kylie gave me a time limit. She said she was going to get the hook if I don't speed up. So I just wanted to tell you what we're planning for 2024 real quick is our goal is to have 4, if not 5 ambulances regularly scheduled. Addition to our radio system, which will be able to track calls from tone till clearance, so we'll be able to get high-end data on that to find out exactly what's going on and any trends going on in the community. We're adding an addition to a survey system that will be surveying us and comparing us to local needs as well as national standards to see how we're pairing up with that. And then we're going to be adding our daily dashboard, which will give us on-the-fly information every day as to how we're doing, if any calls need flagging for Erica to take a look at and see if there's any improvements that we can make, or if we see any trends also, that'll help us with those. And then growing our talent. We've had EMTs and paramedics come from far and wide. They've done great jobs. They're doing great jobs now, but every time we see one of our kids go from explorer to EMT to paramedic, it really says it's a good program, and we're going to continue to support that program. I've invited you all to ride along with us, and that offer stays open. Whether you want to come for a few hours or strap in for a whole shift, you just let us know. We'll be happy to get you out there. And with that, do you have any questions of us? Happy to answer them. Or we left you wanting less. So. All right.
No, I do. Thank you for this presentation. It is really nice to see the broad base of the people that you interact with daily and to hear the compliments about your agency. I love that your goals, and I plan to make sure I share those goals on social media as well. I want to just take a moment to thank your staff for a variety of reasons. I earlier this year hosted a domestic violence luncheon, and Charles Tweed reached out to me and said, hey, I want to be there and I want to be participating in this because we see that when we respond to situations, we're seeing domestic violence, and how can the ambulance be engaged and be able to be part of the solution. So I loved that. We didn't even have to twist any arms. He volunteered to come there, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the engagement that you do in this community. When we had the Kamome event, you were there providing that because it's a first responder kind of a place where kids can see what we have in this community to respond to emergencies. So I'm grateful for that. And then on my personal note, a couple of weeks ago, my father needed to be transported to the hospital, and Erica wasn't there. So, but she's doing a good job training because the other people that were there took very good care of him. And I am very grateful, and he's fine and he's out of the hospital. But I am grateful for the services that you do provide this community.
Thank you.
Anything else? All I can say is I appreciate the work you guys do, and emergency medical services is not limited to the ambulance. It starts at the citizens on the street who make that initial contact, sometimes make that initial call, that starts the ball rolling, that gets dispatched, that gets the fire, gets the police, gets the other services rolling. And it's a community that comes together. If we don't do that, if we don't care about those that are in need, this doesn't work. And as you are an integral component to that, I thank you and applaud your services. But it really is a responsibility for each and every one of us in our community. And my experience in Delaware County is when things are necessary and needed to be done, we come together in a unique way and look out after each other. And for that, I'm very thankful and appreciate this recognition.
Thank you.
I do want to add, sorry to come in late, but I just do want to add that I appreciate you taking the time to meet with each and every one of us and listening to a lot of the things that we had to say, because all of your goals and things you're implementing and improving, I believe are a direct response to what some of us all had to say, and that doesn't go unnoticed, and it's very appreciated. So thank you.
And I would urge, if you come up with any other items that you'd like us to look into, we're happy to do that right away. So don't wait until we meet with you. If you got my phone number, if you need an issue taken care of or looked at, I'm happy to do it anytime.
Thank you. Thank you all. That brings us to our 3:15 timed item.
Hopefully it's 11:15.
11:15, sorry. I'm getting way down the line here. 11:15, timed item. We're a little behind. Conduct a public hearing to consider the appeal of a use permit for the cell tower facility located at APN 110-270-045 off Railroad Avenue, Crescent City, California 95531, and choose to uphold the decision for the Planning Commission based on findings A, B, C, and D at the request of County Planner on behalf of the County Planning Commission. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Maya Mello, Del Norte County Planner, and staff is here if you have any questions.
Chair, I just wanted to say as well that Verizon is here and they have a PowerPoint presentation they would like to present when it's their turn to speak.
Yes. Board, any comment?
Very good.
Okay. So if the Verizon would like to come up and make their presentation, we'd be pleased to see it.
All righty, thank you. All righty, I just left click, right click. All righty, thank you. I'll try not to screw that up. Good morning. My name's Kevin Gallagher. I am here with Complete Wireless Consultant on behalf of the applicant, the Towers LLC, and Verizon Wireless. Also here this morning is Paul Albritton, who's Verizon's outside counsel in the matter. What we're hoping to do today is explain why there's a need for the facility and why the location we've proposed is the best location to fill the need. We'll be here to answer any questions, and if you're not satisfied that the information we've provided is adequate, Paul will be here as well just to speak to the possibility of a continuance so we can do whatever due diligence needs to be done.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, if in response to that, we heard that that you may want to explore other sites or may be asking for a continuance.
Yes.
You just said this, you wanted to explain why this.
Yeah,
But are you acknowledging that you would like for us to continue this so you could explore other sites? Because that was explored at the Planning Commission meeting.
Yeah, if what we'd like to do since we've come up, since we're all here, we'll kind of run through what we've gone through. We've looked at a number of sites, and we've also looked at some additional sites that Supervisor Board just mentioned that we've also looked into yesterday, contacted the engineer. But ultimately, if there's a point where you need more information than what we present, we're more than willing to do that. Okay. If that answers your question. Okay. All righty.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so Verizon first identified a coverage gap in the area in 2022. For the next several months, from the end of 2022 through the start of 2023, Verizon looked at possible locations before settling on the one that was proposed. Later on in September, Verizon enlisted the Towers LLC, also known as Vertical Bridge, to assist with the project. I do want to be clear as to what the tower's role in this. This is not a speculative facility. The location was chosen by Verizon. It'll be built to Verizon specifications. The towers will just build it, own it, but Verizon will be on it from day one. Infrastructure companies, they help carriers build out their networks. They also encourage co-locations because that's a big part of their model as well. So we're asking today, I should be better at technology given what I do. All right, okay. So this is the project location. It's at 2801 Railroad Avenue. It's a 5-acre parcel zoned agriculture, non-coastal zone. There's no height limits. Closest residence is a little over 200 feet west of the tower. On that map there, you can kind of see there's that broad triangle up in here. That's 2 parcels, but the property owner's parcel is right about there. So the design we're going with, what we have proposed is a 136-foot tall wireless facility camouflaged as a pine tree. There are comparable trees of comparable height, some a bit taller, around 140 feet, some a bit lower, around 130 that are in a row that it'll blend with and screen with. 40 by 40 foot network equipment area surrounded by we're showing a slatted fence. Staff did raise an issue in the staff report that there's an additional residential noise requirement that the facility is at 1 decibel of. So we checked with our consultant, and they actually provided a letter saying that if we switch out the chain link fence to a purpose-built wooden fence, that'll lower the sound 5 dBs across the board and solve that issue. There is an emergency backup generator, 210-gallon fuel tank, so that the facility will still be able to run and provide service during commercial power interruptions. The Towers has also reached out to public safety agencies in the county and offered free space on the facility for public space, for public safety antennas rent-free. Here's some plots of the existing coverage. The shot on the left is just a aerial photo of the area to give you an idea of where it is. The gap, what you're seeing there, green is reliable in building coverage, yellow is reliable in vehicle coverage, and then red is outdoor coverage only. Unshaded areas don't have reliable coverage. There's a 1 mile gap in reliable in-vehicle coverage along Highway 101, local roads as well. There's a broad gap in reliable in-building coverage in the Lake Earl area, residential areas. Whereas in facilities are 3.75 miles to the north, 2.75 miles to the south, they're reaching data capacity exhaustion. With this facility, it will fill that gap, as you can see on Highway 101 in vehicle. There'll be new in-building service to an area of 2.15 square miles, and the proposed facility will relieve capacity exhaustion at those 2 distant sites that we mentioned. Also to provide reliable service for communication with emergency personnel. Nowadays, most 911 calls do come in through a cell phone, and if you dial 911 on your cell phone, you go to the nearest facility, regardless of the carrier. So we also have some hard data on what the throughput is for the area. In the rectangle, the squares that are green and yellow indicate throughput less than 8,000 kilobits a second. What slow data speed means is that everything is compromised. Voice calls, streaming data, video, everything is data. And that is serious, particularly on the low band, because when you have network exhaustion, to back up and get a bit technical, the low band frequencies are the ones with the broadest range. So if you're far from a tower, you're relying on the low band, but the low band also has the lowest capacity. So areas that are far are more dependent on it. What you can see on this one, this is the High Tree facility, about 3.75 miles north. You can see the red line is the percent of data resources used. This is a 10-day period. Each day, all day during the day, it's sitting at about 100% capacity before dropping off at night. And when that capacity is at 100, when that capacity is high, the throughput crashes, and that lowers reliability of service in the area. The Crescent City facility, which is actually right on the fairgrounds, not far off at all, you can see it from here, is not as bad, but you can see most days it's getting up there at 100% for a good chunk of the day with the similar issue. The facility does comply with all safety regulations. We had an independent engineer have a look. They confirmed we don't only meet those requirements, but we exceed them by a wide margin, 5.74% of the general public exposure limits at ground level close to the tower. That's as high as the exposure limits get. We also comply with the county noise limits. This study is now actually slightly out of date. With the wooden fence, we can lower it another 5 dBs across the board so that even the generator at the nearest property line would be 50 dBs, which is lower than the higher standard staff reference of 55. 32 for the cabinets, which is really the HVAC, is what that is. Okay, this facility that we chose, the location, is the best of 13 alternatives we looked into. There's no co-location we can go on. The nearest tower is 2.4 miles away, which is too far to cover it. We also did provide a full RF statement that kind of provides some alternate coverage gaps to these locations. But the basic issue is either there's a lack of property owner interest, or the location is not able to serve the coverage gap, or it's either not permitted in the zone or there's restrictive zone limits. One common question is, well, why can't we get into a more industrial area? The area has a rural character, and the answer there is that those sites will not fill the coverage gap. That leaves us with this as the best option. We have provided just a full list. There's also an alternatives analysis that kind of runs through all of these with what the issues are, and it generally is an issue of filling the coverage gap. We have provided some photo simulations, Supervisor Borges, I know you did request that we provide an additional one that kind of gives an on-property view from over here, which we weren't able to get, but we did email the board some photos late this morning. I believe you all were already in session, so I don't think you got them, showing what monopines do look like. We are happy to provide that sim in the future, but in a nutshell, we've got the closest views from the public right-of-way and a couple representative views, including one that is about the most exposed view this tower gets, the hole through the trees there. So there's the view from Deshawn Drive looking northeast. You can see it. Here's a row of trees along there. There's the facility. It's comparable in height to that existing row. The view from Alder Road, about 1,000 feet off. You can see it. You can see the top over that same row of trees. The view from Malone Road, this is the most visible view that I talked about from the public right-of-way. And then the nearest view from the public right-of-way, it's, you can't see it because of the existing facilities. So with that, we believe it does comply. I'd like to have Paul just have a moment to speak. Oh, yeah, you're on the last slide, Paul.
Okay, good morning. Paul Albritton, outside counsel for Verizon Wireless. Thanks so much for listening to our presentation this morning. I just want to respond very quickly to some of the opposition to the facility. And the first one really is aesthetics. And if you've been out to the area, been out to the site, like I know a couple of you have been, you realize there's really one house that's about a football field away that looks over the field at this 40-foot by 40-foot area where we're going to have a wooden fence and a tree. And that's the primary aesthetic objection. I think the other you can see from the photo simulations, otherwise we're pretty much at a distance. And our problem with putting up a facility that's going to serve 2.5 square miles, hundreds of residences, the adjacent neighbor is always going to have that kind of aesthetic impact. But in this case, with this zoning, our current landlord could put up a 2-story farm worker housing building 25 feet from that property line. And so our landlord has the desire to put this facility in. We recognize the aesthetic impact, but we think it's, with our camouflage design, it really is not as drastic as is being argued. The other issue that comes up is they said we didn't demonstrate a gap. I think Kevin's testimony this morning showing real live data of how our system is overloaded shows that we do have a gap, and the fact that we have a limited coverage in that area. We're not obligated to show a gap. That's not a finding that you make under your code. We provide that information in the extensive alternatives analysis information, in essence, really to create a federal case that would allow us to build this facility. The third issue that came up is property values. Property values, again, that's not part of your code. That's not something that you make a finding on. The studies that the opposition is focusing on start with Dr. Gold in New Zealand. Interesting, you had a commenter on New Zealand this morning that showed there was a 20% decline in her study in 2005. She later recanted that and said that doesn't apply to California and the real estate in California. She did a study in Florida that said there was a perhaps 2% reduction in property value for immediately adjacent properties within about 300 yards. So the property value is not part of your analysis, and the property value impact really is on all of the residences, hundreds of residents that will get new wireless service, and that actually has an impact in realtors' ability to sell homes, people working at home, telemedicine, and everything else has a positive impact. We feel we've done a very thorough job in trying to bring this facility forward. We've accelerated it really because our crisis response team was here in August during the blackout and provided additional cell service during that period of time, very high crisis time. And so working with your agencies here, we tried to bring this application forward, try and get it built before the next fire season so you have that kind of benefited additional communications. We're willing to take another 6 months, go back to the landlords we've already talked to you all, re-scrub our work to see if this is truly the best place to put the facility. We think it is, but we're willing to listen and work with the community in order to do that. If you feel you can approve it today, that of course would allow us to bring the facility to fruition sooner. We're here to answer any questions you have and really appreciate your time listening to this appeal. And we'll be back up if you wish after public comment.
Thank you.
Oh, you have a question?
So I just, real quick off of your slide that you presented and the lack in the cover of the red area. A couple of the sites that we went out to yesterday, at least one that looked better than the other, it almost looks like it's more in the red than as if could the current proposed site, like it's lower in that. You said it was too far south, but it almost seems like it would cover more of the red area. Is that not accurate?
Yeah, what we would, that was across the street from, I am blanking on the name of the facility.
It's kind of behind the
Started with
behind Recology.
Yeah, Recology, yeah. They did do, there is a coverage map showing what would be shown in the Recology, and we did contact the engineer for the area, and he said it would suffer from the same issues. Is that correct, Paul? You were the...
Yeah, that's true. I think, and thank you so much for showing us those alternatives. I mean, one of the big issues is it's in a manufacturing zone, and in your use tables, it identifies telephone wireless facilities like ours are a public use, and that public use isn't allowed in the manufacturing zone, and it has a 75-foot height limit. So we would have to, I don't know how we would do that under your code. And so that's one of the big problems, and the other is the height limit. Now, in the agricultural zone where we're locating, and only in the rural residential zones do we not have the height limit and also have that public utility use available. So that's the main reason, is going from the, we're up at 130 feet versus 75 feet. That's why that doesn't survive for coverage reasons. And the same was true on the other location you identified to us was in a residential zone. Closer to residences really than the building that we're proposing, but that also has a 35-foot height limit. So it's that's when we parse through all of this, and it's in our alternatives analysis that we wrote to you. It's got a methodology section, and we have lawyers that pore over your code and come over what the zone height limits are. That's how we narrow down the areas where we can put the facility and then how it provides the coverage. I hope that answers your question.
So if in that particular zoning, if it was, let's see, the one behind Recology, is that, if it wasn't a height restriction issue, if there was ways around that, or if there was a way around the usage, would that be a more optimum location? I mean, you could even go higher. What if you could get 180 feet?
So our RF engineers sent you all in an email this morning a propagation map of what he thinks that coverage would be from that location, and he's concerned about it. But that's the sort of question, we could possibly answer. But we do have a concern about, I digress only for a moment, that says my law firm mostly defends public agencies that have approved facilities from neighbor lawsuits. And we've successfully done that right down the line for various counties. And we don't want to open a window for a neighbor lawsuit because of a misinterpretation of the code or something else. So that's something that we would really want to focus in and narrow down. A variance also for heights is very difficult to defend. You have to show that there's some special reasons, special circumstances that allow us to get that it's not an undue benefit to that property, that it doesn't create an undue hardship, or that there is an undue hardship that we're trying to resolve. So variances are very hard to defend. So that's the reason we try and follow your code and go to what the federal law would call the least intrusive means, which is least intrusive under the values and goals expressed in your code. Okay. Long answer, sorry about that.
Sure, no problem. And before we move on to other questions, maybe if we could have either Heidi come up and just kind of address a little bit of that concern, if that is an issue or not, before we move on to the rest of the supervisors.
Maya Mello, Del Norte County Planner. Under our use permits, public facilities like cell phone towers are allowed to apply for a height standard that's not regular to the zone district. So we frequently at the Planning Commission process over height structures. Manufacturing zone would be no different. A rural residential zone would be no different. They would be eligible for asking for that over height based on our county code general provisions.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good for now.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please.
I guess I have a more technical question, and it really has to do with, I hate these damn cell towers, but it's a necessary evil in this day and age of our dependency on data and our mobile devices. But this is a crazy question, and you talked about this 700 megahertz low band frequency that drives our data usage in these areas that create the red that we're trying to fill with green. When I go to other countries, I don't see a lot of these, and it seems like maybe they're using a different tech to provide the same level of service to meet these data gaps. I could be out in the middle of the Amazon jungle and have self-service, and the closest tower is 15 miles away. So I'm hoping from a technological standpoint, you could explain how I'm able to generate service in the middle of nowhere, and yet I have to look at these things in my backyard scattered throughout. Is it strictly a data piece? Are we using the right technology to deliver the service without increasing the negative aesthetics in our backyard where we live, redwoods, et cetera?
First, I have to confess that I started representing cell phone companies 40 years ago, so I'll try not to talk too long. I'll keep it short. But there are two aspects of what you're describing. The first is the miracle of cell phone technology is the reuse of frequencies. So in the 80s, early 80s, you had cell phones in San Francisco, for example. There was one antenna on Sutro Tower, and you had 80 phones throughout the Bay Area, and you had to be a really rich guy to have one. The miracle of cellular technology was they created a switch which allowed you to put up a second cell with the same frequencies and reuse those frequencies, and thereby go from 80 to 160. Then as we have more customers, you then end up splitting those cells again in order to create additional capacity in each cell. So as the network matures and you have more users, which is exactly what's happening here, you have to split the cell in order to create more capacity. So we showed you charts that showed the facility to the south here in Crescent City and this facility 6 miles north in High Tree are exceeding capacity. Their signal strength is weak. There's lack of what they call a dominant signal. So the phone is trying to talk to maybe 2 cell towers at the same time, which causes drop calls and all sorts of everything else. So that's why when I started, we thought we could cover the Bay Area with 28 cell sites, and we would have 2% market penetration. We now have more cell phones than people in the United States and thousands of cell towers in the Bay Area because we've reduced them down to the point in San Francisco you have 600 streetlights with little 2-foot antennas on them, 600 of them, providing that limited range of service, high capacity service to a large abundance. So it's like old Pogo, we've met the enemy and the enemy is us. It's the people using the phones that are creating the demand that then requires to do that. Now the second part of the answer is that the federal government in the United States, we started out with a duopoly in 1984. In 1996, the federal government said the states can no longer regulate cell phones, and we're going to open it up to a bidding market to sell frequencies to Sprint, T-Mobile, at the time it was called Singular, and we have a competitive market. And what that has done, that's what's created more cell phones than people are in the United States. It's also, we're paying less today for a cell phone than we did in the 80s in inflation dollars because of this highly competitive market. So it's not just Verizon, and this tower would host, through the towers company, it would host AT&T, it would host T-Mobile, and other carriers. And as you must have watched the ads, all competing for that market share to keep the price down. So that's the difference from here in Brazil. And China, for example, is the opposite example. China said, government's in charge, government's going to put up the cell towers. There's one carrier, it's one signal, they can control the cost and availability. And so they have big towers that cover large areas like that. So I haven't heard 15 miles, that's pretty good. But the 700 megahertz is the lowest frequency. That's what your public agencies use. Are there like the 850 or your dispatch for sheriff and so forth? And that travels a pretty far distance. There isn't that much spectrum in that area. So Verizon has about 10 megahertz of signal in that frequency. It has about 150 megahertz in the mid-band ranges. That's the AWS, PCS, and C-band ranges. So we have to build the network for the majority of our bandwidth. we have this small bit. The 700 we're showing you is just a small bit. It's a very small pipeline, but it does reach those phones. But it's running over capacity. So we have to build a network where the shorter frequencies, the AWS and PCS can reach the end user, and that's another reason why we need that site. That was a long answer, I'm sorry.
We still don't know how you get. Sorry, I do appreciate it, though.
Okay, I hope
Because
it
it
answers
does
your
help
question.
explain a lot of what I'm seeing elsewhere.
Okay, and we're here for more questions. And again, these issues of zoning law, maybe some of those things, those are the things we'd be able to work out over the next couple of months with a continuance. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, just looking at your, the recent diagram drawing and coverage, that reflected a 75-foot tower, not a 130-foot tower. And
Yeah.
so what I know, looking at in the manufacturing district would be looking at a 130-foot tower similar to what you have and what the coverage would be. We'd appreciate that, I know that.
And we'd really like to get maybe, I don't want to push the envelope, but an opinion of council or something that's an allowed use.
It is allowed use. We've talked to planning.
I know. I know. I know.
Just to be clear to the public, what you're talking about is the email that you just spoke to has a coverage map for the Genevieve Lane, Recology area, but they limited that to the 75-foot height. What we're suggesting is that there is a variance available, as Maya indicated. I'd like to see that map with that 130, 135-foot tower plotted onto it. I think that'd be interesting and probably pretty helpful for you guys as well.
Again, if we can get legally comfortable with it, we're here really honestly to provide service, not to traumatize the community. We're here to try and benefit the community.
Well, I don't think there's any member on the board that doesn't realize that's a needed area for coverage, because it does have a drop-off area, especially along that 101 corridor.
No other questions? We'll be here.
Thank you.
All my questions were answered with the exception of, in the Planning Commission meeting, there was concern for wildlife as well as the pine PVC needles that didn't get addressed here in the response to the opposition. I don't know if you're prepared to answer either one of those today.
Absolutely, yeah. As I may have mentioned, the pine needle issue has come up before, and most recently Lake Tahoe was reviewed by the Lahontan Water Quality Control Board, and there is over the time, a degradation of the needles fall off, and they are heavy. They are PVC plastic. They fall within the fence combined area, and they're cleaned every 6 months. The techs come to make sure that hasn't happened. The trees are becoming much more resilient, and they have a new UV coating to prevent the degradation of the needles. But the Lahontan Water Quality Control Board said there's absolutely no risk to adjacent water sources or supplies or to Lake Tahoe, and that was then also reviewed by the State Water Quality Control Board, who also said that they were not going to regulate the falling pine needles. And nevertheless, there's still a lawsuit that's outgoing. It was just denied by the Eastern District Court, federal court, to a lawsuit regarding the needles, and it was denied, saying no, there was no regulation or requirement. But those people are appealing to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So that's the issue. In terms of wildlife, and the RF exposure, maybe the big elephant in the room, the RF exposure limitations are based on any environmental impact. So it's the laws that the local jurisdiction can't regulate based on RF exposure to the extent that we show it complies with FCC regulations. In this case, as you saw, anywhere on the ground around this facility will be 5% of what's allowed by federal law. One benefit of having antennas way up in the air is that the exposure levels are extremely low, because the signal is sent out like a fan, like a lighthouse, and it sends it straight out to the horizon. And so the signal is degraded down below. The signal falls off. It's an exponential reduction. So you double the distance, the exposure decreases by a factor of 4. So it dissipates very quickly, the exposure levels. I hope that answers your question.
It answered it perfectly.
Okay.
I do want to point out, and I want to thank you for inviting us to come out yesterday to see the site itself. It puts it in perspective for us to have that visual. So I do appreciate your time yesterday.
There have been a number of studies regarding wildlife as well. There is federal regulation regarding migratory birds, but that's for towers that are over 220 feet tall that have guy wires. And they found that the migratory birds would actually circle the red light and hit the guy wires. So now it has to be a flashing light and other regulations, but that's only for towers that are extremely tall. And this is much shorter than that. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if the gentleman would be amicable, I'd make a motion that we continue this appeal hearing till a future date where the Verizon could bring us alternate site information. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would make that motion that we continue to a future date, unknown right now.
I will second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any public comment? No public comment?
Chair, if I can, is the public, if you're confused, it's okay to say that what we're asking is for us to continue this to allow the towers company to find an alternate location that may work better. I'm sorry if I'm stepping out of line. But to work better, that it wouldn't impact your neighborhood as much. So I think that's what the thing is, but if you want to make a public comment today, you're certainly welcome to do that. You don't have to wait for the continuance. I didn't want you to feel as if you couldn't speak.
I'm sorry. My name is Alana Sparks. I reside at 2885 Railroad. I understand you folks came out yesterday. I met with Bobby, which is the owner of that property. And I've lived there now 7 years. Left the Bay Area, born and raised my 5 daughters there. They live here, some of them, and my grandchildren. My property on that triangle, I have 15 windows that look out over that property, which is the barns, okay? The day I came here, October 2017, I stood in that kitchen and I thought, oh, this is beautiful. It's serene. It's quiet. This is what I need to retire and enjoy the rest of my life that I've worked so hard for. When I spoke with him yesterday, he said that you don't see that, you're not going to see that. How can I not see something that's going to be almost 13 stories tall? That's 136 feet, right? 13 stories, give or take. Visually, I went and I looked at the tower that's behind Safeway. Is that your tower, Verizon? Over by Safeway?
On the fairgrounds?
Or by the fairgrounds?
On the fairgrounds, the lattice.
And how tall is that one?
Don't know off the top of my head, 150 maybe?
So just 20 feet short difference. In my backyard, where I have all my acreage, my barn, my children play, 15 windows to look out at that beautiful forest and pasture that we put our hard-earned money into purchasing to live at. And now there's going to be this that I moved away from. And obviously it's affecting me emotionally now. The thought of it. I was looking back through 7 years of photos. It snowed here a few years ago. Everybody remembers that, how beautiful that was. And I can't imagine seeing and listening, or the traffic that's going to be going up and down our little private road now for the maintenance that's going to have to be done, right? It's going to have to be cared for. If it's going to have a wooden fence, it has to be cared for. And whatever other maintenance things that have to go on there. And it's heartbreaking. obviously, and I don't want it. I really don't want it. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Apologize for the mess, but I have something I do not want to share. David Cooper. I live at 113 Downing, which is right in that neighborhood, not far, and I sympathize very much with the sentiment expressed. But let me tell you another reality of that area. I use Spectrum for my house phone, and when the power goes out, so does my house phone. And my wife has COPD and other health issues. And as you've seen with the demonstration from Verizon, when the power goes out, our cell service essentially goes out. So if I need to make a 911 call to the very capable Del Norte ambulance to get help, I have to go a mile and a half. That's a reality right now. Now, I moved here knowing that that was an issue, and I'm not trying to complain about it. I'm living with that. But it really would be nice not to have that as an issue. It would be nice to have something that is well camouflaged, that meets community standards in the area that would support that. It's my neighborhood. I too love the trees. We moved here for this environment 5.5 years ago, roughly the same time that they moved here, from roughly the same area that they moved from, for probably the same reasons that they moved here. This is a great community. We do need this service here. It will enhance the quality of life, and I'm sorry that it might have an adverse impact on a few people, but we do need this, and I'd like to see if we can find a way to meet her desires and the community standards and needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. That's exactly what I was hoping for with the continuance.
If you're going to continue this, there's several of us that would like to oppose and make public comment. If you're going to continue it, why don't we reserve it for that time?
You can choose either or.
Are you going to continue it?
Yes. You gotta vote on it first.
It's likely to be continued if that's the way the vote goes, but I can't tell you at this point in time. But you have the opportunity if you wish to speak about your concerns at this point in time, or if it is continued, you can speak then.
Well, if it doesn't pass, if my motion doesn't pass right now, there will be another motion to approve this, and there will be a public comment period prior to that as well.
Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Dave Rested, and I have the 10-acre piece just south of where this proposed tower is going to go. There's no picture of my house in the pictures. A 40 by 40 area with a 140-foot cell tower. When those needles start falling off that, in a 40 by 40 foot area, when you're 140 feet tall, the way the wind blows around here, you don't hang your clothes out on a clothesline that's 7 feet tall. Those needles are going to blow out of that area. They've got metal in the plastic in those needles. The deer eat them, the elk eat them. It makes the elk feel full. So they starve to death. They don't eat. If they'd have told me 40 years ago when I bought my property and built my house that there was going to be a cell tower there, I wouldn't have bought that. I didn't have the option. I don't believe they should be able to come in and put a tower in a residential, I don't care if it's zoned egg or whatever. The reason it's zoned egg is if you want to have an animal, a pig, a chicken, that you can't have in Barisa track, that's why we have egg zoning. And I think that should be respected. We have no option now. If the cell tower was there before I bought my property, I probably wouldn't have bought it. So I don't know how they can come in and stick one in there after I've been there and everybody else in the neighborhood has been there, build houses there. So we're not for it for sure. He doesn't talk about the value too much of the property. There were several letters that the board had received from realtors we had talked to. Could you give us a letter? Mary Missel. on how many people drive into your real estate office and ask for a 5-acre parcel with a 150-foot cell tower on it? Nobody's driving and asking for that. We said that at planning up on the top of Cappy Dobbs Mountain. She said she's taken prospective buyers up there, prospective buyers. Once they saw the cell towers, forget it. They all say 25% maybe decrease in your property values. Some people come out, look, no, but you can't fix stupid. So we sure don't want it. A lot of the neighbors don't want it. At first they sent letters out to the 300-foot people. We were one of them. And a lot of people in the neighborhood got it. Then planning sent them out in a 1,500-foot radius. Everybody got a letter, I guess. And there was a lot of opposition in planning. And there's a lot of opposition in the audience today for this. And I don't think they've done their due diligence looking. I know Verizon, it's a law that they have to make public.
Thank you, Dave.
They have to make public.
Thank you.
Where the drop calls are.
Appreciate it.
My name is Ken Letko. I live on Alder Road. First, I would support the other opposition. Those people are thinking along the lines the way I am thinking. I definitely want to support an alternative location. It's like we're looking at one spot, but maybe there are other spots that would be better. So it seems like a no-brainer to check that out. The debris from the fake Christmas tree, if you will, we don't know really how that's going to play out. We really don't. We also really don't know how the frequencies and the effects on humans, other living things, including redwood trees, which, as you well know, are fewer in number day by day. So I just want to add my voice to the opposition and let you know that the locals, I noticed when Verizon puts up their slides, they don't supply an address. My address is 2895 Alder Road. I live here. The folks at Verizon don't live here. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm coming.
Thanks for attempting to give us an out.
My name is Sandy Linderman. I live at 1800 Boulder Avenue, which is adjacent to the property for this proposed project. My husband and I strongly oppose the erection of this tower, all for the reasons that have been stated already, as well as aesthetically, we don't want to look at this thing. There's plenty of other places that we even have heard of that this could be fixed. And if you do grant the continuance for this, I would ask that they do find another location, if not thoroughly just denying the application today. I just want to also add our voices to the opposition.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for a vote on the motion.
Okay, so I live on Alder Road, and I have a pacemaker, and I wonder how that's going to affect people with health issues. And yeah, we don't want to see it. There are places that are not residential that they could do that. But we are. I mean, I've lived in that house since 1995, and I love Alder Road. I praise the Lord all the time for putting me on Alder Road. My kids were raised there. So I just pray that they will not be allowed to do this. Amen.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Allard. I own 2 properties on Alder Road. We've been there for 21 years, 23 years. I'll voice my opposition to this as well, just to join everybody else, just so you know that it's stated for the record. I feel that there are definitely other places where it could be better located, not right in our backyard where we're going to see a pine tree instead of redwood trees. They have their Silicon Valley joint venture study that shows that it wouldn't have any property value effects here, but we all know that San Jose isn't the same as Crescent City. People come here for a reason. They don't want to live in the city. They don't want to live with a cell phone tower right in their backyard. We're here for the trees and the wildlife and just the quietness that we all enjoy here. There's definitely ways, I think, around it. They've talked about the height restrictions and other zonings that the county, I think, is willing to look at adjusting for them. So it definitely can be in a better location. So my vote is also against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say I appreciate, I think the board similarly, all the communication with us over the last couple of weeks in regards to this, the opposition that was put forward. And I think we are hearing everybody loud and clear, and I think Supervisor Short offered, we have a path forward to allow maybe a good continuance to look at other locations.
We have a motion on the floor. Go ahead.
With that, I'd like to add, everybody seems, has an idea of where potential sites might be, so I would strongly suggest or urge, give an address. If you have a location that you think, it sounds like they're more than willing to explore other options, but we need these ideas. So if you have the locations, if you have the options, bring them forward. If you can't get a hold of them, send them to me. I'll forward it on. They are open to any ideas. And so instead of just saying there's got to be a better option, bring them forward. I would love to hear them, and I would love to pass them along, and we'll explore every which way possible.
We have a motion and a second. Please pull the vote.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes, I'd love to see the study with the 130-foot tower at that location. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, yes. Please take a 5-minute break. We are ready to reconvene our meeting. Under General Government Number 32, this is consider a vote at the request of the Tri-Agency Economic Development Authority Board of Directors to conduct a joint meeting of the Board of Supervisors, City Council, and Crest City Harbor District Board of Commissioners as discussed the dissolution of the Tri-Agency as requested by the Chair of the Board of Supervisors. We had our Tri-Agency meeting. At that meeting, there was several discussions. The discussion that facilitated the idea of coming forward to this, to have a joint meeting, came from the concerns of Supervisor Howard that we did not want to disenfranchise the other three members of our board by making the decision as to the tri-agency, the having all three boards come together. My request at this point in time is to bring this forward to the board in its entirety to see if there is a desire, an interest in the board in being present at a full meeting of all three boards at a time to be determined when it's convenient for all three. So I would entertain any discussions at this point in time as to where you feel we are at.
I'd move to approve the meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just, this has been a long-standing board, has done a lot of good things in the community. Don't need to rehash the most recent troubles, but it seems like we've waded through that. But it seems to just make sense that all three entities would get together and discuss this on what could be the cusp of ending of this board. So it makes sense to me that we should all get together. So I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Do we have a motion and a second?
I have comments.
Go ahead.
Well, questions actually of county council. If we get together in a joint meeting to discuss whether or not we dissolve it, we're still at a standstill. We're still at an impasse with regard to the bylaws. So we wouldn't be able to, at this joint meeting, reintroduce that without all the steps necessary. Suspend the rules, motion to reconsider, things that we have already had 4 or 5 bites at the apple on. So the purpose of a joint meeting, for us to just dissolve it, it seems somewhat unnecessary, given the fact that this board has made it clear where they stand with the bylaws.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily unnecessary. I think the reason why there was the idea of having the joint meeting is perhaps hearing the input from the other agencies. Maybe some people might change their mind, things of that nature. But ultimately, you know, it does seem like there is a standstill with the bylaws. So, you know, take that as you may, however you want to take it. But I do believe that, because I was at the tri-agency meeting, I did watch kind of the talk amongst everyone, and it seemed that the idea was if everybody's together, you know, perhaps the harbor could explain why they voted the way they did and kind of have this whole meeting of everyone together to kind of discuss those issues.
But in order for us to change the bylaws, we have to bring it back them here. So to have a joint meeting before all that has been done seems somewhat counterproductive, at least in my viewpoint.
And I mean, it could also be, you know, the other two agencies hearing what the county's perspective is in regards to the bylaws. Perhaps that would prompt them to look at what they had done and come back with something different. So that was my understanding of why they wanted to have the big joint meeting, kind of to hash all of that out. But, you know, the chair has taken the position that you guys have already voted on the bylaws, and in order to bring them back, you would have to go through that 3-part motion, that 3-part
Suspending the rules.
Yeah,
and-
suspending the rules and coming back that way, which didn't seem to gain any steam the last time, but perhaps after, hearing from the other agencies, maybe there would be kind of a different feel amongst the board.
And then my only final point to that is that we have representatives from each agency on the tri-agency. They should be passing along the collective board's viewpoints on that, and the compromises should be happening at that meeting. And so that's just my opinion on this.
I think our views were clearly displayed at that meeting. However, the context of the request was put forward is that because there's only 2 representatives, three members on each board are absent and don't have a voice, and at the severity or the determination at that point in time, seeing that the impacts are going to affect all 3 of our boards, that the recommendation was that it would be best done in a full attendance, because we didn't want to silence the voices or criticisms or positive negatives of the other 3 unattended board members, considering that decision would basically have dissolved the tri-agency at that point in time. My intention was just to bring it back at this time to the board in full, so that if there is the appetite for attending that meeting and hearing, and in that open 3-board session, that should be a decision that we make together as a board, as to whether or not we even feel it is of significant purpose to go forward at this point in time, since no date has been set as yet. And we have a motion. Any other comment? Joe? Okay.
I was just going to say that, as being one of the vocal guys at our last discussion here, it seemed like that motion to suspend the rules and then possibly vote after that. The reason I wasn't in agreement with that was because even after our discussion that we had here at the board, it seemed like what was brought back to us was the very same thing, with no movement from the harbor and the city, to just hash over it again. So I believe in the finality of our decisions, but if there is other information, like I've had 2 occasions now where people that are supposed to be in the know are telling us that offshore wind's coming whether you like it or not. The Fed's pushing it. You don't have any control over it at the local level. Hearing that, and maybe with the city and the harbor hearing that, maybe we could have some fruitful discussion on and finding a happy medium there. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, I do have hopes that the tri-agency can be a functioning and useful and productive agency for the county. So,
Good. Pull the vote, please. Oh, public comment. Sorry, didn't want to disenfranchise you, Sam.
keep them in line, Sam.
I'm glad that the Board of Supervisors is being taken care of, but I was at that October meeting when the proposal to reinvest in the tri-agency came about, and there were 30 people in the audience that said they didn't want to see it. They didn't want it to happen. And the board went ahead and reinvested in the tri-agency. Now I hear from Supervisor Howard that the previous tri-agency had some value, but I beg to differ with him. Other than a couple of one-off government projects, which now have come back to bite us, the tri-agency didn't do a whole lot for this county. And here you are even considering the fact that you want to get together and stir the pot again to try to get some accommodation seems a little bit ludicrous, but particularly when you're battling against a public that says no, no. And as far as Supervisor Short saying that You have already hashed this out innumerable times just in the last few months, and here you are back again, stirring the pot. It seems like what should be dead, and that to go ahead and gather together the forces so that everybody's psyche can be stroked, so to speak. They all get to get your valued opinion. The public has already pronounced what they want to see happen. As far as offshore wind coming to the offshore waters of the Pacific Coast, already Coos County, Curry County, the city of Brookings, all three tribes in this county have said they don't want to see it. And already the federal government has made statements to the fact that they're considering backing off of that insistence. So what you're getting for information about it's coming, I don't know where it's coming from. It failed miserably on the Atlantic coast, and the interest rates keep going up. And since it's a front-loaded financial picture for offshore wind, I don't see it happening for decades to come, if ever. I just came from a country, as I explained to you, that would sincerely take advantage of offshore wind, or even onshore wind, but they haven't moved that direction, primarily because it doesn't produce what they want, and the cost to the government is enormous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bring it back to the board for a vote.
No other public comment?
Didn't see it.
Okay. Supervisor Starkey?
No.
Supervisor Borges?
No.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. That'll complete our agenda, except for reports from the board. We held that to the end. Supervisor Starkey?
Yeah, thank you for allowing us to do this at the end, because if you're ready to leave, you can leave now. It was 3 weeks between board meetings, and so there's a lot that happened, and I apologize, but I attended the Secure Youth Treatment Program in Humboldt County. We have a lot of our youth that are being served down in Humboldt County in their juvenile hall. I really want to make sure that the programming that's happening for our juveniles within that facility is something that is worthwhile. We pay them a contract. I want to make sure that they are paying attention to the programming. I listened to a raise proposal for Del Norte County by U.S. Commercial Marketing that Supervisor Howard facilitated or arranged, and we're looking to market our area internationally if it pencils out on the funding for the study that we would be undertaking. I attended an IHSS luncheon to discuss the advisory board here. It is a mandated board, and I spoke with our DHHS director, who is looking into it and making sure that if it is a mandate that we had one in the past, that we either get that revitalized. Toward the VFW and heard concerns relative to the veterans and how we can better serve their needs. I attended the economic summit, The Future is Now. The best part of the summit was hearing from our youth, who were not shy one bit, telling 150 people in the audience what they needed from this community, which included a residential treatment program for not only their friends but their parents, so they didn't have to be treated so far away. But they also wanted hands-on experience for learning new skills. They really want that home ec classes to be returned. I followed up on the potential closure of Redwood Focused Care. This is where I love this community and it coming together. Through our efforts, we were able to talk with Dr. Palak Patel of Brookings, who is willing to absorb all those 500 clients. He offered jobs to the 2 people at Redwood Focused Care, as well as the nurse practitioner, saying after she has a long break, a long vacation, if she wants to come back and do house calls in Del Norte County, he's going to make accommodations for that to happen. And then in a few years, they are going to open a clinic here in Del Norte County to serve the population here. I aided in a cleanup of an encampment along District 2 along Pacific Avenue. We utilized people from a youth group as well as this kick bottom girl who just gets in there and gets stuff done. I went fishing on opening day, and I tell that because it was really educational for me, because prior to that trip, when Supervisor Howard and Supervisor Borges talked about lean cod and quillback and canary, I had no idea what they were talking about, but I got to see firsthand and was educated about fathoms, and so it was extremely important for me to go on that as well. I continue work with the Performing Arts Center. I'm attending the teen court meetings. There's one that started at 12 that I'm missing right now. The school district is going to take the lead on those teen court meetings and developing that program, which makes the most sense because they will most likely provide the most referrals along with the school resource officers. I attended an opioid litigation team meeting, and lots of work is being done on this topic, and I was happy to see that the grant that we obtained while we were in the Reaching World program was approved by this board today, because that's going to really kick off the ability to do that mobile MAT. And having conversations with Sheriff Scott over the past couple weeks too about medication-assisted treatment, that is something that is going to be happening. And so helping educate the public on how this is just the new way of treating substance use disorder is something that we need to keep talking about. I attended the 4th of July Planning Commission meeting. I don't know if I announced it last time, but Bob Cochran and Debbie Cochran were named as our grand marshals. Judge Cochran has long been the parade guru. He organizes it. He makes sure it goes off without a hitch. The parade theme this year is Stars, Stripes, in the Spirit of '64, paying homage to the 1964 tsunami. I attended the city council meeting. I like to hear what they have to say about the county during those meetings, so I try and attend every single one. I reviewed the Mental Health Services Act report, which is still open for the public. The fiscal year 24-25 MHSA annual update is available on the website. It's open for public comment between April 26th through May 25th, and we have our local behavioral health board meeting on June 3rd at noon at 880 North Crest Drive. Encourage people to get engaged with that. I attended a behavioral health collaborative meeting for care court planning. Again, we've talked about that a little bit, about how care court is going to impact our services here and how we are going to have to abide by that state mandate. That is scheduled to go live on December 1st, and I just want to say that the DHHS workers in behavioral health, and as far as Renelle Brown, the director, they're working round the clock to make sure that we are able to implement that program with the services that is expected of us, and that it'll be done smoothly through that transition. So I do appreciate the work on that. Participated in a Del Norte and Tribal Lands Community Food Council board meeting. I was recently appointed to that board. I met with the outgoing planning commissioner for District 2. Adam Trask has resigned as my appointment on the planning commission, and so I had a chance to talk with him about some of his concerns. And I am actively looking for a new appointment from District 2, and I will be advertising that soon. And Dave Powell, I'm looking at you. And I attended the Board of Supervisors special meeting, and we were able to complete that meeting in record time of 3 minutes, and we were not able to meet that today. I did, as I mentioned, participate in the tour of the cell tower proposed location with Supervisor Borges. Attended the first 5 commission meeting. We approved the yearly budget and the 5-year strategic plan. And then this last 3 weeks, and I will continue to do this, is paying special close attention to the state budget and how those cuts in those services are going to greatly impact us here in Del Norte County, paying attention to what those cuts potentially could be that are going to have a very direct impact on us, one of which could be the broadband middle mile. It's $1.6 billion that they're potentially going to take, and you know what they do when they take that money is the rural communities tend to be the ones that don't get the services that they need, and so I will be paying close attention to that. Thank you very much. Told you it was long.
Supervisor Howard.
I'll try to be a little briefer, even though, as Supervisor Starkey said, we had a lot going on, but I'm going to focus my energy on 2 pieces here. I do want to quote Donald Westfall in reflection of our last conversation. if you want to have a booming economy, you have to be more creative and inventive. That's what she just said to us here during public comment. And there's models for joint powers authorities up and down the state of California, outside the state of California, that have been successful in bringing communities together, especially rural communities that have limited resources. And I've talked about not being siloed. You guys have attended the Economic Summit recently. And I ask, what is going on? What's going on here that shows forward progress? And so when it's reported back to me, our chairman makes a statement at the Economic Summit that one of the guys, the scientist, the guy that holds institutional knowledge here for the Board of Supervisors, the guy that nobody listens to. You know what? Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe nobody listens to me. Maybe I do hold that institutional knowledge. Maybe I'm trying to bring a perspective after many years of working towards a non-siloed approach in this community, because we don't have the resources in which to address our economic development needs. And we continue to go to the taxpayer for the dollar instead of trying to find the businesses that are going to support those revenues that are going to make a difference. And that brings me to one of the meetings I attended the week before last on Friday, and it was being hosted by the Joint Powers Authority of Sonoma County and Mendocino County on biomass utilization. Two very important discussions in the state of California, more importantly focused by the state of California because of the amount of carbon being released into our atmosphere annually through these forest fires, not only here in the state, but also across the western region. Our forests are burning up. We're not achieving our carbon climate neutral goals because we're releasing it all into the atmosphere, and we're doing it because 100 years ago, as quoted by Ms. Bettenkorf of the California Conservation Group under the Resources Department, 100 years ago we had 40 stems per acre in the state of California. Today we have over 400 plus stems per acre in the state of California. The state and the federal government, now knowing and seeing their mistakes, realize that there has to be a monumental change in order to have corrective action. But they know there's got to be multiple tools in the toolbox in order for this to occur. So they're creating legislation that hopefully tackles the wrongs of the past to create economic development out of that forced biomass. And this conference focused on the policymakers in that field, it focused on the educators in that field, and it focused on the businesses in that field. California, I'm sad to say, is one of the last in the United States to get on board with utilization of these products. Oregon and Washington are far beyond us. Canada is even further beyond that, and Europe is by far leading in the world on forced biomass utilization. And the products were extremely diverse. And I was glad to see it happening, because in this case, it doesn't have to be reinvented in order for a similar type business to locate here in our county and have a resource right next door. And I'm glad to see our federal government, more importantly, recognizing this fact and now promoting policy in our force that allows for that extraction to occur and that biomass to be utilized. It gave me a little bit of hope in an otherwise gloomy-ass community that we will never take a step forward in pushing for the utilization of this forest resource that continues to plague us and shut our community down with massive power outages for periods of close to 4 weeks at a time. In moving forward to the National Association of Counties, this board was very focused last year in committing resources towards a 501c being formed under NACO that allows for the focus on forest policy issues specifically, and gathering the data necessary for us to argue to Congress why we here in the western states, and I'm going to talk about Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington, including Hawaii and Alaska, why we here are having this problem in the western states. And that data set is now finally coming together. There's close to $7 million in this pot. There have been close to 300 applicants now for the position to manage this 501, and the web platform has now been formed. we can now access it very quickly and begin to gather some of the data that's going to help make our arguments more prudent and more timely when we lobby in Washington, D.C. for utilization of what makes up well over 70% of the land base in Del Norte County. And so I'm going to end that conversation there because I know you guys aren't listening to me, but I will say, if not tri-agency, then what? Because we need something here. Thank you.
Supervisor Short.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to delay your vacation just a little bit more. I met with the Housing and Services Subcommittee a couple of times, and of course, those conversations just surround our ERF project, and strategy and timelines and getting things done in that regard. Attended RCTA workshop and board meeting, nothing significant to report there other than our receipt and purchases of new buses. Those are coming down the line. Supervisor Howard invited CSAC President Bruce Gibson to town. I took the opportunity to show him where Pebble Beach Drive is falling away on there at near Brother Jonathan. Also gave him a tour of the airport and our Williams Drive ERF project site. The Transportation Commission was canceled this month, so we didn't have anything there. Attended North Coast EMS, MAC and TAC. Went to the Tippecop event at Seaquake for disabled folks, and glad to see our Sheriff's Department, City Police, a bunch of CHP, and even Yurok Tribal was there just in the short time that I was there. It was really cool to see everybody was having fun, and it was a really, really cool event. I met with Del Norte Mission Impossible. They brought in Rogue Retreats. Also, the founders of Rogue Retreats have formed their own consultant organization. They were there. They also brought in Coos Curry Housing Authority and a person from St. Timothy's in Brookings. Really had a well-rounded conversation about dealing with homelessness and how it's going to affect our congregate shelter in our micro village. And finally, I attended a promotion ceremony for 3 fire engineers at Crescent City Fire and Rescue. We call engineers the guys that operate the trucks and the pumps. 3 guys, Dave Bowdish, Michael Weiland, and Corbin Hinton, were promoted. Just wanted to say congratulations to them because they put in 80 hours of their volunteer time to take 2 different classes to become engineers. So big commitment of time, and appreciate their efforts, and I know they're going to do good things. And that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Borges. I attended the Economic Summit, gave a presentation about county's dollars that we have spent going forward in development. That presentation outlined the $3.1 million that is going to the sheriff's office for development, the $550,000 that is also going to their communications and their record management system there at the sheriff's office, as well as $500,000 that was awarded by earmark for the development at Pike Field, and the hopefully dealing with a lot of the drainage problems that we have out there in Pike Field. It is a good place. We've had a lot of tournaments there, brought a lot of people to the community, and it's engaged our youth in much needed sports activity. So looking at that being improved is going to be great to see. We have earmarks that we had set forward in the upcoming year, requesting $4 million. This is to develop the South Beach area, as well as to develop signage for visitors coming into Del Norte County to outline areas like Legasky, Hiuchi, Fort Dick, Smith River, to really showcase some of the areas for our recreational areas, as well as for them to go swimming and fishing and know the areas to which they should go visit and see here in Del Norte County, and give them better signage in order to get them into our redwoods and into our park areas. My discussion at the Economic Summit was one of, we have to, if we want economic development, not only do we need to focus in on the resources that we do have, that being our fishing, our ag, our timber, and that biomass development and the dollars that are coming out for those types of programs to be developed, and it would be a ideal location here in Delaware County because of the number of biomass, the number of overgrowth and dead and dying trees in our area and brush would sustain that kind of a development here for a long period of time. And so encourage that kind of thinking. But what we really need to focus in on is giving those visitors that come here, and they come here for one reason, that is to see our beautiful nature, to see the redwoods, and to visit our parks. And we have to do that. We have to give them an experience. Any place that is successful, when you look at those areas that do that well enough, whether it's Roswell, New Mexico, or whether it's the towns outside of Yosemite and Yellowstone, they give people that come to visit the experience that they want. They envelop them in and around the thing that has brought them there. And we have to do a much better job showcasing the redwoods and in giving the people that come to visit Delaware County a reason to stay. And the longer that we can give them to encourage them to partake of the things that we do have in abundance here, our natural beauty and our wildlife, but also have the capacity for them to enjoy it. Right now we have very limited capacity, so we have to work with our parks and our systems. I have talked with both the national and state parks as well as the Six River National Forest and our NRA areas in discussions about how can we do a better job of increasing capacity, because that is what we are sorely lacking. Many of our trailheads, especially during the summer, are full to capacity all the time. The parking lots are full, and so it limits those people that want to come and enjoy the trails and enjoy nature. It limits their ability to do so because there is lack of parking, lack of facilities, lack of access to those areas that they come to see and they want to enjoy. And so we're going to focus in on that. Hopefully, maybe tri-agency, maybe some other economic development, but we definitely need economic development to encourage those to come and enjoy and build good, solid businesses that can thrive here in Delaware County. And I appreciate this long meeting and time, and thank you so much for attending. And this concludes our board meeting for today.